Welcome to today's episode of Ask A Butch. I'm Sheena and I'm joined today by Lise and Amy, two butch women who are going to be answering listener questions. Today we have a fun topic. We're talking about dating of butch women. The questions we are answering are as follows. Can butch women date other butch women? Are butch women always the tops? And what's the difference between a butch woman and a stone butch? Take it away.
Yes, no, and we can get into it. How's that?
Alright, so let's talk about butch women dating other butch women. Obviously, butch femme relationship is not the only one that works.
Of course not. I find it interesting that we have to talk about butch. We don't have to talk about femme because that's like 99.999% of what you see on TV and in movies.
Very true. And to tell you the truth, that's the majority and the bulk of what you see in lesbic.
Yep.
I mean, that's true. Okay, so let's insist on more diverse representation of butch women in lesbic.
Heck yeah.
And let's insist on more butch relationships in media in general.
And the thing that I find, I'd say the most upsetting is the idea in lesbian fiction that when it's a butch relationship, that there's a power struggle. And that there's always maneuvering and fighting to see which butch is on top. And I just, I mean, I find that it's not offensive. I mean, because I'm sure that there's some relationships or some hookups that are like that. But it's ridiculous to think that two butch lesbians would not be able to get together and have a relationship that was based on mutual respect and trust. That there was always going to be a fight to see who was on top. And it totally negates and erases a whole subsection of butches who aren't dominant and who aren't on top and who love being on bottom.
Hell yeah. I mean, that's... I mean, if you want to wrestle as part of foreplay to see who's going to be on top, yay, sure, great. That sounds super fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that is fun.
But this idea that it has to be this like hardcore like struggle for, you know, who's going to be the butch. I mean, this goes back to which lesbian is the man in your relationship, which is stupid. And I want to say so many swears here because it irritates me so much because we're women. You know, it goes back to like, do butch women want to be men? No. We just want to be who we are. We want to be able to express who we are in the way that makes us comfortable. And yes, that includes in the sack. And yes, I am a butch bottom. I do not want to be the dominant person much of the time. So that's what makes me happy. And frankly, in any relationship, when you first start out with you know, the sexy times, there's going to be some negotiation, right? I like this, I don't like that. And it may be spelled out and it may be felt out. And frankly, that's part of the fun of, you know, early sex, right? So that butch women, you know, don't also get this opportunity and have to be relegated to this role that society thinks they play based on nothing more than their own stupid heteronormative bullshit that they've had to build up over millennia is offensive and irritating, and leave your hang-ups out of my sex life. Thank you very much.
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of that movie where the two guys punched each other and then ended up having sex. What was it called? Oh, Brokeback Mountain, right?
I have not seen that.
I have not seen that either.
I hated that movie because it was two straight guys having this relationship and it was all like deep and meaningful and all pretend gay. And it actually makes me wonder, I'm sure that gay guys get asked the same sort of question, you know, who's the girl in the relationship?
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Who catches?
Yeah.
So in honor of your butch bottom, Lise, I've drawn this picture here. Do you like my butch bottom?
It's very nice.
I'm glad you like it. I drew it specially for you because you also like saying butch bottom quite a lot.
It's nice and alliterative. And plus, I mean, I just feel like, butches are erased enough. Butch bottoms are erased even more. So screw that noise.
Well, and the idea of a great many of the community that butch equals top, I would think would make it very difficult to be a butch bottom, because there's expectations placed on you in a relationship that you have no idea how to fulfill because it's not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I will admit that all of my previous relationships have been butch, and there's never been any sort of struggle to see who the top was, to see who was going to be more dominant. And I don't know if that's more because we considered each other as equals in the partnership, or if it was because when it came to sexy times, I was very willing to take the bottom first, or to, well, and that's the thing is it was not something where, okay, she got to be the top and she got to decide everything to do, and then everything was done. I mean, I don't know how everybody has sex, but I like taking turns.
Oh yeah, and the idea that the bottom doesn't have any say in what's going on and just has to lie there and take whatever's coming is crap.
Yeah, I so agree.
That just leads to really bad and boring sex.
Yes, really.
When I was in butch relationships and I was considered the bottom, it was more about, okay, this is what I like and this is what you're going to do to me. Okay? So, I mean, how can that be considered bottom if I'm the one saying what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I'm now in a butch femme relationship, and I am very much what would be considered the top. And it's not necessarily that I was forced to it. It's what works in our relationship, and both of us are happy with it.
Well, that brings up a very good point, actually. It's all very dependent on the relationship and the individuals in the relationship.
Oh, heck yeah. And I mean, and to say that all relationships are one way is like saying that all straight relationships are one way. I mean, we know that they're not.
Aren't they?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, because every straight male in a straight relationship is an alpha male who is, the one that makes all the decisions, and all of the straight girls just follow along with whatever the alpha male says, and
it's all P and V, and they're all in the missionary position, and nothing else ever happens. Boy, that sounds boring.
I agree.
So, well, I have to say, for me, I mean, I am more physically attracted to butch women, but I mean, I've been in a number of relationships in my life, because when it comes down to it, the person that I want to be with is not necessarily the person that I think looks prettiest, or is the most eye-catching. They're the person who is best for me, and I've been with a woman who thought she was more butch than me, and I thought I was more butch than her, and I'm with the woman who's considers herself more bisexual than anything, and frankly doesn't really place anywhere on the scale, because she wears what's comfortable for her, and that works for us because we respect each other as people. We do what makes each other happy, and as far as I'm concerned, that's I mean, we're consenting adults. We enjoy each other's company in a multitude of different ways, and that's what's important to a relationship.
I agree. I know that my current partner, who is femme, wonders why I'm with her, because all of my previous partners have been butch, and because when, like you say, if I'm looking, what catches my eye is butch, and so she feels like she doesn't fit that, so why am I with her? And it's because, yeah, okay, the butch outward appearance might attract me, But what I want to be with is the person inside, and that's her.
And part of it, I think, also is, I mean, one of the reasons why butch women attract me is, well, sometimes I want to be like, ooh, I like their outfit. Where can I get that for me? But part of it is also that I'm more certain that this is someone who is also a lesbian. And I don't feel like I'm imposing my sexual desires on somebody else who is never going to be able to reciprocate.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. All right, let's talk Stone Butch then.
As far as I know, a stone butch is basically a butch lesbian who does not like to be touched sexually.
Mm-hmm. Right. So in the relationship, in the sexy times, they're also always gonna be the pitcher, and they're never gonna be the catcher, or very, very rarely.
Yes, and that basically means that they're going to do their partner, and most likely they are not going to let their partner touch them or do anything to please them or to get them off. Because basically they feel sexual pleasure and whatever else they do by giving that to their partner. And they don't want any sort of interaction as far as their own completion. Shall we say it that way?
And they work particularly well with pillow princesses.
I would say so, because pillow princesses don't expect to have to do anything. Whereas most other women like some sort of reciprocation. So if you go into the relationship expecting to reciprocate, a stone butch is probably not going to satisfy you because they don't want reciprocation.
I think it's important at this point to state that being a stone butch is a legitimate sexual preference. It is not due to some kind of trauma or deviation or something being wrong with the stone butch. It's a legitimate sexual preference just like any other legitimate sexual preference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a an instinct for people to decide that someone doesn't want to be touched sexually because of something in their background. And while that may be the case, that is certainly not the case for everyone. I'm not even going to hazard like what that breakdown might look like, but it's just what you like and what turns you on is going to be different from the next person. We all have our own particular desires, and this just happens to be theirs, no matter what the reason is.
Agreed.
Absolutely. And labeling a stone butch as damaged or as if there's something wrong with her is no different from heterosexual people saying that all lesbians have been molested and therefore they are lesbians. I hear frequently comments about how we must be lesbians because of a hormonal imbalance,
right,
or something traumatic in our past, and it's simply not true. Let me tell you, my hormones are fine, and I much prefer the company of my wife than any potential husband.
Mm-hmm.
And that concludes our second season of Ask A Butch. Thank you, Lise and Amy, so much for joining me for this fantastic season. Even though it was very short, it was very entertaining and informative. For listeners out there, if you loved this show and other shows on our channel, then consider becoming a patron. You can find our patron link at patreon.com, which is patreon.com/The Lesbian Talk Show. As a patron, you also get exclusive behind-the-scenes podcasts. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.